This video goes with Section 16 of Hansen and Quinn's Greek An Intensive course and covers the article and attributive position. You can refer to Hansen and Quinn pages 27 to 29 and 92 for their coverage of the same material, which they revisit in the appendix, page 646. The Greek article is roughly equivalent to the English definite article the. But unlike the English word, the Greek article has case, number, and gender, and so there are multiple forms of the word you need to know. Here they are: ha, he, ta, to, taste, to, to, te, to, ton, tain, ta. There's no vocative. In the plural, we have hoi, hi, ta in the nominative, tone, tone, tone in the genitive, tois, tais, tois in the dative, and tous, tas, ta in the accusative plural. Notice that the masculine and feminine nominative, both singular and plural, have rough breathings, not taus, and no accents. They're called proclitics. Notice that all the genitives and datives carry a circumflex. Notice that the neuter nominative and accusative singular match, as do the neuter nominative and accusative plural. These are the forms you simply have to memorize. Notice that these are mostly the first and second declension endings that you've already learned. Usually we learn them by case: ha he ta, tu taste tu, to te to, ton tain ta, hoi hi ta, tone tone tone, tois tais tois, tus tas ta. The next thing you need to know about the article is that it agrees with its noun in case, in number, and in gender. So, he psuche, the soul in the nominative singular, has he, but when I want to write a sentence whose subject is plural, souls, I need hi psuchai. And if I want to write for the soul in the dative singular, I need te psuche. So with deed, it's ta ergon in the nominative singular. Deeds is ta erga in the nominative plural. And for the deed is to ergo in the dative singular. Or, to continue the examples, the word as the subject of the sentence in the nominative singular is ho logos. The words as a plural subject is hoi logoi, and for the word is dative singular to logo. So far, the article looks a lot like the ending of the word it goes with, but that doesn't always happen. The road is a second declension feminine word, so it's he hodos. It agrees in case, nominative, number, singular, and gender, feminine, but it doesn't match. Same goes in the plural, hi, hodoi. They agree in case, number, and gender, but hi and oi don't match as endings. And for the road, dative singular is te hodoi, hodo. The article is first declension, but the word is second. They agree, but they don't match. And now one more, last example. The land, nominative singular, is he chora. The lands, nominative plural, is hi chorai. And for the land, dative plural is te chora. Here I want you to see again that the articles agree but don't necessarily match their nouns, since the article declines in the first declension with eta, and chora is a first declension in long alpha. The article is one of my favorite things about Greek because it helps you see what goes with what in a sentence. It does this with what we call attributive position. More rules to learn, but once you know them, the article can magically corral a sentence for you. Attributive position is formed by a noun and the article that agrees with it. Remember that that will be in case, number, and gender. Anything in attributive position, like a prepositional phrase, a genitive noun, an adjective, is about that noun. It's an attribute of that noun. You might right now be wondering, where is this magical position, or how the article and the noun make it? Well, there are 3 ways. 1 has the article first, then the attribute, then the noun. This is the sandwich. For instance, hoi tu adelphou logoi. It means the words of the brother. Tu adelphou is an attributive position to hoi logoi. So of the brother is telling us an attribute of the words. It's about the words. The same pattern is true with hoi ente hora adelphoi. That prepositional phrase is specifying something about the brothers. They're the ones in the country. We would translate the brothers in the country. So that's my favorite kind of attributive position, the sandwiching kind. The second way is article, noun, article again, and then attribute. The article, still agreeing with its noun, is repeated to attach an attribute to the noun. So for instance, hoi logoi hoi tu adelphou, which still means the words of the brother, or hoi adelphoi hoi ente hora, which still means the brothers in the country. If you want to distinguish the meaning between these 2 types of attributive position, you could think of the second as the article tack-on way, and almost as a I forgot it and let me add on, and then you could translate the words, the ones of the brother, or the brothers, the ones in the country. But truly, that's overstating the distinction. You can translate both ways the same. Well, what about number 3? Look at 2 again and erase that first article. This time, it's noun, article, attribute, and the meaning is the same. This one is the most afterthoughty, but you can still translate it the way you did the first kind. Once you are reading longer passages of Greek, context will tell you what tone of voice to give to attributive position. So again, Greek does attributive position in 3 ways. Number 1 is the sandwich way, article, attribute, and then noun. Number 2 is the tack-on way, article, noun, article, and then attribute. And number 3 is a little bit more afterthought, noun, article, attribute. Notice that in all 3, the article appears right before the attribute. Now, I'm going to get a little ahead of Hansen and Quinn here and tell you about what happens when something is about a noun but isn't in attributive position. This is predicate position. If you run into article, noun, and then a modifier, you'll often see a period at the end because that modifier is in predicate position, and this pattern can form a whole sentence. The noun in this instance would be in the same case as the modifier. Greek doesn't use the present tense forms of the verb to be if it doesn't have to, so you can have a whole sentence without a verb and just supply is. So You recognize ha, kakos, adelphos as attributive position, the sandwiching kind, even if you don't yet know the adjective kakos, which means bad, and happens also to be nominative and masculine and singular, just like adelphos. So this is the first kind of attributive position, and it means the bad brother. And you see how the article, you see how the article is right there before the attribute. But ha, adelphos, kakos doesn't have an article before that adjective, and so we can put a period after it and translate the brother is bad. Hansen and Quinn will get to this much more thoroughly when you learn adjectives, but it's good to know when you learn attributive position what not attributive position is, and that's predicate position. For now, just memorize the forms of the article and be ready to recognize attributive position, which should have you all prepared for the work you will be doing in drills, in class, and in translation.